Ladies, gentlemen, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. It depends where you live. And where you live for this debate does not matter. The topic is fantastic. What's the future for European power TSOs? Of course, they will have a future. Which one? Florence School did look at it. We did produce a research report. Three things did pop up into our minds. The first, big factors of change. First, achieving this enormous internal market in the EU, 550 million inhabitants in a single market for power. Second, decarbonization. We are decarbonizing the power sector, so it could change many things for TSOs. And third, this enormous wave of digitalisation, high-tech, etc., which is pushing every industry, think the car industry when it will be driverless. Second, it did seem to us that the third package of the European Union is not really fully addressing these three challenges. And third, for many of us at Florence School, we do not expect changes, but more a revolution. But we may be wrong. We are only a school. To know more about the topic, we have three fantastic persons invited. The first one, an acting woman in a leading position at European level, Bente Hagem, if I pronounce it correct. She is Executive Vice President at Statnett, the Norwegian TSO, where she is in charge of European affairs, but she is also chairman or chairwoman of the board of the European body for TSO, ENTSO-E. And you will see she will be the first to say something because she is in the driving seat. And two other outstanding founding fathers of the European Power Internal Market, Daniel Dobbeni, founding father of ENTSO-E, but now doing something else, is chairman of Go15. Go15 is a world club of the 15 biggest TSO at world level, and believe me, at world level, you have very big ones like State Grid China. And then the founding father of the Council of European Energy Regulators, Jorge Vasconcelos, he is also doing many other things, but I did forget, he's a too close friend of mine, and I did forget to reread his CV at each time we meet. But before starting the debate, we have an audience. It's an online debate. We do it only for the audience. And we did ask to the audience what they think about these three changes. The poll was, what's the key element which deserves the greatest attention in your mind? Is it achieving a single internal market? But for a fourth of the audience, that's true. That's the biggest element of change for TSOs. Is it the wave of technological innovation, Apple, Google, big data, and other Uber coming inside the energy sector? A third of the audience is okay. Or is it decarbonization itself? This is a total change of the whole energy planet. Half of the audience says that's the change. But what says Florence School is the problem of Florence School. What says the audience? The problem of the audience. But now we would like from our experts. We will start with Bente again. Bente, in your opinion, these three factors of changes, are they key? And any of them more important than the two others?
Certainly the carbonization is the big challenge, but the other ones are also very important trends, and I don't know how reasonable it is to have one, two, and three. Here, it's all of these three things are very important and will be vital for the future. But certainly the energy transition with deep carbonization is the biggest challenge for all of us.
So we know from Bente, Bente is in charge, she's in command now. She is in a big company for transmission, and she's also on the board of European transmission companies. But being in command, maybe she has no time to look at all the details. We will see from Daniel. Daniel has been in command, but now has more time to think about it. Daniel, how do you see these three factors of change?
Well, if I look from the not 15, Jean-Michel, but 18 members of Go 15, Europe is only a part of it, so they are not really that much concerned, except if they are, of course, in Europe. So I would say that globally, what really is on top priority for all TSOs is basically the deep decarbonization, because it modifies completely the way the power system is working. And second element is, of course, the wave of new technologies and innovation, including the Uberization, if I may call it, of different sectors, from, of course, the cab industry to hotels and tomorrow, the power sector. So definitely the two last ones. But of course, for those in Europe, Europeanization is part of the game.
So we now know that in Europe we have a certain setting, but at the world level also we have big changes pushing. But this was said by the companies. But a regulator like George, you are a regulator, so you are a kind of deputy of the society to take care of the common good. Seen from the common good, what do we see?
Well, thank you very much. In fact, I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of the regulators because I'm not a regulator anymore. But I agree with the previous speakers in the sense that what's going on is a combination of these three changes. And the combination of the three makes the big change and makes the evolution. We want to keep our integrated European market. And it's a fully liberalized integrated market. It's the largest integrated, fully liberalized electricity market in the world. We have not yet accomplished this task, but we definitely want to continue. We don't want to go backwards and to balkanize the European electricity market. But at the same time, we have decarbonization. Decarbonization is not only within the electricity industry, because decarbonization affects the whole economy, and that's what is maybe more relevant for the electricity industry. The fact that other sectors, in particular the transport sector, have to decarbonize. And the decarbonization of the transport sector means a huge opportunity for the electricity sector. Of course, this means that the electricity produced and used, namely in transportation, must be a green electricity. So this brings us back to the need to decarbonize the electricity system itself. But in fact, here we have a combination of internal and external impacts of decarbonization. And the technological revolution is there. Internet is there, the mobile phone is there, and this would have had an impact upon the electricity system even without decarbonization. The power of the masses, the fact that consumers can today control remotely any single device has a disruptive potential, which in itself is tremendous. So the combination of these three factors is what is making the present and the future of the power system in Europe so interesting.
Thank you, Jorge. Everybody did notice that you are also making a discreet advertisement for azulejos from Portugal. That's fine, because they are beautiful. The audience also did notice that all of you, the three of you, you are okay that there is big factors of change, but you do not ponder in the same way the three different ones, which is very interesting for me. But we will get a second round because also for Florence School, the third European package for power market is not really addressing these challenges. But is it true or not? And in your mind, the three experts that you are, what does the third package miss regarding these challenges, and what should be done? Bente.
I have to say I think the third package is a great accomplishment, and it's vital that the third package will be implemented. It's not enough because it will not solve everything, but it will be a very good basis for facilitating the transition in the future. And EU has the right goals, we know, for 2030 and 2050. And they also now identify the missing regulation in addition to the third package and maybe adjustments of the third package. So I think we have a very good basis for the transition. What we have a challenge with, the biggest challenge I feel, is the speed. I don't think we have the right governance to get the right speed. And that worries us, and we need to find a way to have the right speed. We are 38 countries in the European market, and we need to solve things together. And then the good thing is that the European Union have launched this energy union, and there they talk about regions. And I think regions can be the big driver for making sure that we have the right speed to accomplish common grid planning, to have good market developments, and also coordinated operations. So this will be the answer, I think, to making sure that we implement all the good things that are now in the regulation. And we should make sure that we identify what I call political regions. We have political regions today. We have the Nordics, we have a pentalateral forum, we have Southeast, we have Southwest. We should develop these regions so we get ministries, regulators, stakeholders, TSOs together to push development and have common roadmaps and identify blockings for the transition. Because you cannot write everything into regulation. You need also push to accomplish the big transition. So this is my biggest concern. Do we have the right governance, and do we have the right speed?
Very good. And all the audience should notice that Norway is a member of the internal market, but not all the other parts of European Union or Energy Union. But you should notice that a Norwegian is totally pro-European market, is calling for more integration and a robust frame to make it work. It has to be noticed because it's frequently not understood that Switzerland and Norway are full members of the European market and are full of propositions and of proposals to make it work. But now I would like to hear from Daniel, because Daniel is not only founding father of the internal market, but also a kind of external father to the third package, because even if you are not formally a father, you have influence deeply the mother, being the Commission. So third package, does it make it or not?
It's a great honor hearing from you that I influenced the European Commission, which I don't believe is really the case. I think that the issue is not the third package in itself, because the third package is only a part of it. You have also other directives, other regulations, among which energy efficiency or renewables, that have to be taken within the global legislative package that is on the table today. And I think one of the issues of all legislations is that it's always behind reality, especially when you look how much time it takes to discuss it, to write it, to adapt it, and to get it through the different commissions and decision factors at the European Commission level and European Union. In other words, my biggest concern is that This legislative package, and I follow Bente in that point, is a question about how much it will fit the future, knowing that the future is changing tremendously fast. If you remember that the third package started back in discussion in 2007, something around that, nobody really imagined that renewables would have such fantastic growth during the next few years. So it shows how difficult it is to write legislation that is perfectly in line with what is happening on the market as well as on the technology side. And in that sense, I'm afraid that by doing too much legislation and too much regulation, we will not be able to take advantage enough of the new technologies, and that we will instead slowing down the evolution process. And when I compare in different other parts of the world, it's not only Europe that is facing that issue. Maybe United States, it's quite different because it's even more fragmented in the power sector than Europe. But the same concern is there, and all operators are asking regulators to go forward. But it's easy to go forward, but it's difficult to control if the evolution is so fast. So adequacy between legislation and reality and the evolution in front of us is really, to my opinion, a major concern.
Very interesting, eh? Because both Bente and Daniel have had big responsibilities at the EU level, and what they think about the present set is really very interesting for us. And then we have George. George, do you find more of your own DNA into the KID third package, or you are like Daniel, you were at the baptism, but you weren't involved in the making of it?
Well, I think all of us have contributed somehow to these ideas and to the current legislation. But answering your question, I think that we have to recognize historically that the third package was designed without the decarbonization goals in mind. The third package responded to the internal logical of the internal market. It's a pure political product, if you want, of the liberalization process of different sectors in Europe. And this is important because historically that's how it appeared. So it was conceived for another purpose, not for a low-carbon energy landscape in Europe. Now the question is whether this third package is still useful, whether together with other things or with some changes, it serves for the future. And I believe that we agree saying that, yes, it is a good basis which has allowed us to develop very interesting and very practical things. We have now market coupling from Portugal, from here, from Lisbon to Finland. We have now a much better coordination of network planning throughout Europe. We have now, since last year, an integrated data collection and transmission among all TSOs. This was not in the third package, but it was added later on. So we have achieved a lot with this third package, and the general feeling is that we still can achieve more. Where we disagree probably is on what is necessary, what else should be added or what should modify to bring us to the desired goal, which is a reconciliation between a free, integrated European market and our 2020, 2030, 2050 CO2 goals.
That's true.
Okay, and here I disagree with Bente, because I think that going for the regions would be a step backwards. We have achieved so much in terms of integration, both at planning and at operational level and at market integration level, that it would be very sad to see now artificial borders being imposed and artificial regions being defined. This does not mean that a certain kind of regionalization or renationalization may take place. Why? Because the member states are free to choose their energy mix, and this means, among other things, the possibility to strike a different balance between centralized and decentralized resources. So the degree of decentralization of generation resources combined with the degree of demand response in each area of Europe will create, of course, a certain level of fragmentation. But this has nothing to do with artificial, political, existing or past and present borders. So that's why I disagree slightly with Bente on this point. But I think that there are other mechanisms that we need to study and to implement if we want to go forward. I will give you just one example.
With a short one, because we have time constraint, George.
Very short, just to illustrate what I mean. The third package led to the definition of a set of rules and codes for cross-border trade. The cross-border trade rules we have today apply to conventional, let's call it gray electricity. But we have no rules at all for the exchange of green electricity. We only have in the Renewables Directive some language about statistics and so on, but how can we imagine the combination of gray and green electricity flows throughout Europe? It has not yet been addressed. That's the kind of problem that we have to address.
Okay, then we are going to have the last round among the experts, and after that we will interact with the audience. So, my dear experts, according to most of the people at Florence School, it's more a revolution than a change, but it does not mean, of course, much if we do not explain. The purpose of the question is not to ask you what Florence School thinks, because we do not care. You are the experts. So, Bente, in your mind, are we facing changes, and we will address them as changes, step by step? Are we facing a revolution, and then how to address this kind of big structural move?
First, I just have to answer a little to the last speaker about the regions as a backward step. You know, we have, I think, 2,000 pages of European legislation. So that's the basis. We want a European market. No doubt about that. But if we want to develop the market quicker, we need to develop regions also. So it's not to choose one or the other, it's both. That's my message, but that I'm sure we agree. So coming back to this evolution or revolution, I think we will have both. We will have evolution with the third package, things that we will implement. You know, we will go from a 1 hour time resolution in the day-ahead market to maybe 5 minutes. This is evolution, but very important to get flexibility. So we will have all these things. But then again, we will have also revolutions, and that is very inexpensive renewable energy. Solar panels, you know, wind power, very inexpensive, and distributed production. This is a type of revolution we will have, and we need to prepare for this and make sure that we can facilitate these new big trends that are coming. So I see both, and we need to make sure that we have governance so we can tackle these things. And coming back to what is now focused, which I think is very good that the Commission is now focusing on, is to get the customer into the market. A main part of the customers in Europe are on the regulated tariffs. How can they play in the market in the future if they have regulated tariffs? We'll need smart meters in houses. We need data hubs. We need to get the customers into the market so we can get the flexibility from the customers. So that is the revolution, and it's there already. So I'm also here for both. I see both sides of the story.
Many thanks, Bente. You have a view, and your view is going from the beginning to the end, which I like very much. But Daniel, how do you see yourself this future?
I think it's more a question of semantic, because the difference between evolution and revolution is the time it takes for it to happen, and how far the market parties that are concerned are able to tackle it. One of the issues of the power sector is that it's long life assets with long depreciation time, so you cannot just change overnight every 6 months like you can do with IT, telecommunication, whatever. So moving forward, the biggest challenge will be how to adapt an asset base sufficiently fast in such a way that new players, new technologies can plug in. And when you look at some of the issues that you, sorry for the call, when you look at the issues that you're facing, for example, by improving your SCADA and EMS systems, you cannot do that overnight. It's a very big investment with tremendous consequences down to the substations. So given the fact that we see a tremendous decrease in price of especially PV, and I expect a decrease in price of batteries, I think that we are going much faster towards a revolution story than an evolution story, which has been the case for the last 15 years.
Thank you, Daniel. So the speed and the depth of the change are key, and will tell our industry and partners like regulators or consumers can act or react. George, you will have de facto the last word. So in a nutshell, how do you see that? Speed and depth of the possible changes.
Well, to answer your question directly, in my view, it's a revolution, and it's a revolution which is imported. It's not an internal revolution of the electricity system, but the application of modern information and communication technologies, what is also called the digitalisation of the energy sector, will make the revolution. Look at, you have mentioned at the beginning Uber and what's happening in the transport sector. Look at the simple software application has tremendously changed the revenues of so many companies around the world, has changed the investment in the existing cars and in new companies. The same thing will inevitably happen in the electricity sector. The more digitalization we will see, the faster will be the life cycle of the different business products, and the rest, the infrastructure, has to go together with this revolution. The sooner we adapt to this new mindset, the better for everybody, and of course, the better for the consumers, first of all.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are part of the audience. You are like me. As you have seen, I do not say anything. I'm only coordinating the debate. And you see that experts have sometimes common views, sometimes not, but they are like you and like me, and that's normal. Future is not written. Future is half coming, half produced by us, so it's open. Now you, audience, how do you see it? So I will take your questions. I will not read all the hello from Porto, hello from Boston. Oh, from Boston, Astrid, you are in Boston. Hello, Astrid. I will take questions. First one. United Kingdom is considered currently as the European Union. Any implication this may have for EU power transmission industry? Anybody wants to comment? UK and European Union and transmission issues? If there is nobody, we shift to the next, no?
Yeah.
I would say it will have implications, especially for the UK network.
Bente.
I just say that we are, not part of EU, but we are in the internal market and take all the laws and regulations that are there, and the third package and all these things. Now I'm talking for Norway, and if things should happen in the UK, I guess they will find a way to cope with that, and this is and they can be part of the European market anyway, even though they have some change. If they have some
Good
changes.
point. UK can become a new Norway in the European market. Daniel, something or the next question?
Just what?
But I'm saying it.
I just say that we survive with and we are integrated.
What we shouldn't forget is that the interconnection between the power systems in Europe is such today that there is not a single country anymore that is able to supply its demand whole year long without the support from other countries surrounding it. So whatever happened to the UK, they absolutely still will need to have import-export, and we will need them also at some occasion. So the political side will have no impact, fortunately, on the power.
Okay. So we don't care if Nicolas Sarkozy takes France over in a few months, because anyway, he won't be able to change this. Next question. How to define regions? What are the criteria to define regions? And will these regions be able to cope with the speed and the depth of the changes we are expecting? Bente.
This is the challenging question, but and the TSOs have many regions, and they are based on the functions that we have. So this is important, but we need to find good political regions, as I told you or talked about before. And this is, we need to find regions that has a geographical good scope, that have a cultural history of working together, and we have these type of regions today, where we have a common grid planning, we have common markets, and we need to develop these regions in a good way, so they can make sure that we have the right governance. That doesn't mean that we can have, between the regions, we need the bridges that take infrastructure between the regions, and we need also markets on the European platform. But it will be different ways of defined regions, but after some different functions. But basically we need to have as a basis these political or governance regions I'm talking about. These are a basis for speedy development.
Any other thing to add? We jump to the next? Please do.
Allow me. I think it's in the evolution towards a single electricity market. I think regions are both a bless and a cure. I mean by that it took several years to really increase exchanges between national power systems, and the danger is that we end up by having regions that are so, let us say, fixed by legislation or by rules or by tradition or by political reality, that you face new borders again. So I think it's inevitable to move toward regions, because otherwise you cannot tackle this issue as a whole. But at the same time, it's a dangerous evolution if it's not taken flexible enough. And we come back to the point I raised in the beginning: how can we make legislation flexible? I think this is still an issue.
I jump to the next. Innovation. Where does stand EU in energy technology innovation vis-à-vis Asia and US today and tomorrow? Will we stay competitive on equal footing with the other big regions? And could regulation play any role or none, as suggested by Daniel? It could play a bad role, but a positive we do not see. Who wants to say something? Innovation, Asia, US, regulation. Any candidate?
Yeah, I can.
Daniel,
maybe
please
I can
do.
start. I think innovation. I don't see inherited. I would say differences between whether Japan, US, China, or Europe. There is a difference in the way, of course, the market is approached. In Europe, there's a tendency to expect regulation to support innovation, while, for example, in the US, you need a business case. If you have no business case, you have nothing to sell, and you will not find investors. So I would dare to say that there is a lot of innovation, and I've been able to witness that in my activities today. The difficulty is still that it's a lot of work, a lot of administration to get from the idea to a company using venture capital and moving forward. We are spending much too much time in Europe through administration, regulation, legislation compared to other countries, and this slows the capability of Europe to go forward. While in fact in the labs, in the universities, in very small companies, we have tremendous ideas, at least as good, if not better, than what you can find elsewhere on the planet.
Thank you, Daniel. The two others, something to add to subtract, or I jump to the next? I jump to the next? Decarbonization. Okay. Is decarbonization really a trend of the energy sector or something pushed by policies? And will it stop or totally change when policy will stop to push it? Because is it sustainable by itself, decarbonization, or the daughter of subsidies?
I can start. The decarbonization has to be pushed by goals of decarbonization. We need to have, with the Paris Agreement, with the EU goals for 2030, 2050, we have a push politically, and then you get the political decisions. So you can have so CO2 will cost. So we will have subsidies for renewables and all these things, and then this will drive the innovation, and we see the decrease in cost for renewables. It's tremendous, and it will be very cheap, inexpensive in the future. What will be challenging, and we haven't found really the solution to, is the backup. The backup we need when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing. In 2006, it was 10 days without wind in the North Sea basin. What do we do then? So we need to find solutions for that, and the innovation on backup and storage and batteries are very crucial to solve the problem. But we need political push, that's for sure.
Somebody else?
Yes, please.
George, go on.
Go ahead, George. I'll talk after.
George.
Of course, it is a political decision. Of course, the CO2 goals were a political decision, and of course, the change from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources in the electricity sector was not the decision of the utilities. It was an external, a political decision. And there were good reasons for that, because look at for instance, in Europe, look at the largest utilities of the past. in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Spain. Look at what they were as vertically monopolies, and look at the kind of troubles they face nowadays, the kind of restructuring they do nowadays. Obviously, renewable sources, because they have a smaller scale than the large conventional fossil fuel power plants, were not in the interest of the large utilities. So they would never have take the initiative to go that direction. And this is something that we have to recognize collectively. This transformation of the electricity industry is mainly driven by external factors. One is the political factor with decarbonization, and the other one is communication and information technologies. It's the digital revolution. The electricity industry has to respond to these two challenges.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah, I fully agree with both speakers in terms of the need to have policies that back up such a fundamental move. But also in some countries, like China, for example, the evolution is also driven by the situation and the fact that the population is acting on what they are seeing or feeling. And in that sense, the difference maybe with Europe is that politicians took the decision, but it was not backed entirely by the 550 million inhabitants we were talking about. So there is some difference in perception in how fast, how much, and how much money we should spend on it. The only thing I wanted to add to Bente is that in the different tools we have to make it possible. The only one I was missing in her speech was demand side management. I think this is still today the missing link. We have been talking about that for years, but unfortunately it's not moving fast enough. And there needs to be a lot of work achieved in order to make it easier to use this potential that is there, and that basically doesn't cost that much to activate.
Thank you. We have just time for one last question. Half of them are going to be unanswered, but that's life. And the last one is, many people are advocating ISO, independent system operator, and they are pushing it saying, with independent system operator, we will not be tied by the past, by the ownership of the assets, we can do new things. Is it true? Or is it something typically American and it has no counterpart in Europe? 1 minute each. 1 minute, which one? The first one. Allez, Georges, you are the first one and we will end with Bente. Georges, 1 minute. ISOs. Dream, reality, interesting?
Well, I think it's something that some of us have been advocating for many years, the European ISO. So I think it will come.
Okay. Daniel?
I think it's not because you create an ISO that you can forget the past, because as I said in the beginning, this is an industry, including at the customer side, with long-term assets, long-life assets. So it will not just start from scratch. Now, would it make it easier in some places in Europe? Most probably, if not definitely, yes.
Aha. And Bente, you are the queen. You can say what you think appropriate.
I think we need to first identify what we want to solve with an ISO. Is it an operational task? Do we want better security of supply? We haven't had a blackout since 2006 because we now coordinate much better between the TSOs. So I don't think common or regional operations are necessary. But if you want to have a regional market operator, it could be interesting to have market development in one body that makes sure that we have the progress and the speed that we want to accomplish with the developments of markets, for example. So so you need to find out what you want to achieve. If you want to have common grid model, grid investments in a region, you don't want to, you don't want to have an ISO. Then you want member states to sit together and have a common investment package. So I don't really think regional ISO is necessary because you first have to identify what you really want to achieve.
Thank you, Bente. We will stop there. We will not end because we see that it's a fantastic topic, very important one for the TSOs, their companies, etc., for Europe itself, and for the future of humanity if we think decarbonization. We will stop there. I have been very happy with the debate on my own as a consumer of the debate. I hope the audience will think the same. We will see. I do apologize for half of the audience because your questions have not been taken on board, but as you will know, we have only 45 minutes, so it's a constraint. I do thank very much Bente because she has a very busy agenda today and she has been very kind coming from the beginning to the end. And of course, Daniel and George, they are founding fathers, so their opinion is always very welcome, very useful, and it's by mixing people having operational responsibilities like Bente and wise founding fathers that we will understand more where we are, where we go. What is the point of view of Florence School in this? We have none. We are a school. We are not there to push things. We are there to open debates, to ask experts to say something, and from time to time we have ourselves something to say, but we do not think that we are better than the others. We roughly think the opposite. The others are better than us. Many thanks, Bente, Daniel, George. Have a good day. And dear audience, have a good day too. And Astrid in Boston, have a very good day, Astrid. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.